Welcome, coaches. And I tell you what, it feels very good to be able to say that, because if you listened to last week's episode, you would have heard that we've rebranded the Prisoner and the Postman podcast to the Coaching Masters. And we are now doubling down on our passion, our vision, our mission. And that is to change as many coaches' lives as possible by helping them create freedom in every sense of the word. So it feels great to be able to say, welcome, coaches. And welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Masters podcast. Now, today, we're going to be talking about do these things and you will never be successful. Now, I'm just going to quickly blitz off the list that we quickly just wrote down on notes in about 45 seconds, because this comes from the top of our heads, but obviously we want to make sure that we've got some solid value to offer you today. Comparing yourself with others, beating yourself up, having a fixed mindset, having a problem-focused mindset, saving rather than investing, spending time with negs, doing what others want of you, TV, media, news, alcohol and drugs, staying stuck in one environment, not making decisions, being scared of everything, listening to people who don't have what you want, not setting goals, believing the false sense of security that you're immortal, that's a deep one, not educating yourself, and trying to make money rather than add value. Now, that might have just seemed like a couple of little headlines, but we are going to dive deep into each and every one of those. And by the end of this, you're going to know everything you need to remove to stop yourself from being successful. But before we do that, Liam, you've had quite a significant day today.
Yeah.
Would that be a good word for it?
Significant is the perfect word for my day today. Significant, a milestone, a day to remember, a feel-good day as well, a day of relief also, taking that breath of, oh, thank God. But mate, today has been an all-round amazing.
Share it all with us. I want to hear it. Everyone listening wants to hear it.
So for all of our listeners, you may or you may not know that recently me and my wife found out we're having a baby, which I'm incredibly excited about. Yes. So this is our first child. We're having a baby. And we also found out recently that we're having a girl as well, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to have a daughter very, very soon in December, which is when she's going to be born. And today was the 20-week scan. Now, the 20-week scan is a really significant.
Wow, hold on a minute. How many months is that?
Well, we're halfway. Wow,
so, that's gone like that.
Mate,
I thought it was the 12. I thought it was a 12-week one.
Yeah, we did that, 6 weeks ago. Or 8 weeks ago. So yeah, man, the 12-week scan was when we found out we were having a girl. That's right. I think that was a 12-week scan. I'm not sure. But
yeah.
This was the 20-week scan. And so we're halfway, which is insane when you think about it. So what is it? It's the 23rd of July, August, September, October, November, and then a bit of December. So we're 4 and a bit months away.
Wow.
And as well as it being the halfway point, this is the scan where they tell you if there's any abnormalities. So if anything's wrong. So it's pressure. Right? It's pressure because you're going to this scan, and the mixture of emotions that I have are, one, I can't wait to see my little princess again up on screen, because every time we go to one of these scans, she gets a little bit bigger. She gets a little bit more active. You can see a bit more detail on her face as well. And also her fingers and toes and her arms and legs, she starts to take shape. So one, I'm really looking forward to that. But then at the same time, you're really nervous. And I was really nervous because you're if there's something wrong, this is when I'm going to get told about it. So we went to a place called the Birth Company down on Harley Street. We paid privately because I'm not allowed in the NHS scan because of the coronavirus. And the NHS 20-week scan is tomorrow. So me and Claudia said, look, if they give us any bad news, Claudia doesn't want to be by herself and receiving that bad news. So of course, in my mind, paying for the private scan is a no-brainer. So we went to Harley Street, really gorgeous offices in Harley Street. They had a nice medical center there. The whole experience is, of course, a very comforting experience. We went in, dark room, Claudia laid down, they get the jelly on the belly, they get the scanner out. And this lasted about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes. So it's quite a long scan,
That's intense. I mean, was they keeping you on the edge of your seat? So any minute now we'll be able to let you know.
Well, I tell you what, they did it in a really good way, because basically they check in stages. So at first she's like, Right. Okay. Her eyes are perfect, right? No cataracts. So, which is really great to hear because both my sister and my dad had cataracts. So they were like, yep, she hasn't got cataracts. She's got great eyes. Then they checked for like a cleft lip and they were like, her lips are perfect. Then looked at her heart. They literally zoom into all four chambers of the heart, right? And they're like, yep, all four chambers. They change the color of the screen. So they show blood flow in different directions. They're like, the blood flow's good. The umbilical cord is healthy. Her spine's healthy. Her brain's healthy. Her hands and feet are healthy. So we have a 100% healthy, happy, strong baby. So it's been a significant day to say the least.
Congratulations, mate. And that's going to even bring even more energy to today's podcast. So yeah, it's nice to thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure the listeners will be very pleased to be able to learn a little bit more about you and what's going on in your life. And yeah, it's exciting. Hopefully, guys, if you're continuing listening to this podcast, then we can take you on this journey. And the next podcast to the next, we'll hear about more scans, and eventually a Coaching Masters baby will be born.
How good is that? The first Coaching Masters baby. So for everyone listening to this, keep listening, stick with the journey, because we're halfway there, and in another 20 weeks, which in reality is only 20 episodes, right, of the podcast. So, and we know that goes by really, really quickly. So in another 20 weeks, I'm going to have a little baby.
Right, well, let's jump into it. So, guys, this episode is about keep doing these things and you will never be successful. Now, first of all, we're now speaking to coaches, whether you're an existing coach or you're an inspiring coach. You may not be. You may be just be in the world of personal development and mindset and motivation and just like to put yourself around coaching related topics. But obviously, with the Coaching Masters, we're here to serve coaches. So we want to make this content just as relevant for coaches as it is to the everyday person. And the first thing I want to start with, guys, speaking to the coaches, is your cover is blown. Okay. I know. We know. Everybody actually knows that you are human. Okay. You have just as many insecurities and doubts and fears as every other normal person. There's this common belief that coaches feel like they need to be perfectly well put together and not have a single limiting belief or a single, negative day, or, they must be brilliant at everything. And it's just completely, not just unrealistic, impossible, because we are never the finished article, and we're always going to have a new level and a new layer of development to try and improve upon. Because if at the moment you break down the 6 limiting beliefs that are in your mind, it's now your job to uncover the next 6. And 6 is irrelevant, by the way. But yeah, so guys, whether you're a coach or you're not a coach, this applies to you. And let's start with the first one. Now, this is probably a little bit more common. People are aware of it, especially down to the rise of social media and social comparison and the influence and the likes and followers and everybody having these metrics to be able to very easily compare themselves to one another. But the first one that you need to stop if you want to be successful is comparing yourself to others. So what's your opinion on that one, Liam?
This is a big one, isn't it? This is a big one. And it's interesting because we actually see this a lot within our own community. Within the Coaching Masters community, me and Lewis do this thing once a week called TCM TV, which is the Coaching Masters TV. And every single week we give updates to celebrate everybody's wins within the community. And of course, we want to do that because it's important that we celebrate each other's wins. But what we've heard time and time again is that if somebody doesn't get a shout out, or if somebody doesn't have a significant win that week that we mentioned, then they start comparing themselves to others. And it's the worst thing that you could possibly do, because everybody is at a different stage in their journey throughout their process. The stage that you're currently at is the perfect stage to be at right here, right now, today. Does it mean that you want to stay at the level that you're currently operating at? Definitely not. You want to keep progressing, you want to keep growing, but it will hinder your growth if you compare yourselves to people that are further along the journey and are deemed more successful because you're on the journey. You're on your way to becoming that level or achieving that level. So it's like a speed bump, isn't it? Comparing yourself to other people. It just slows you down.
It's a distraction, isn't it? When you're looking at somebody else, you're not looking at yourself, and looking at yourself is what's going to allow you to learn, develop and grow and get these things that you want from life. And I love what you said there. So key, just to sort of bring it up again, just in case anyone didn't quite catch it, is you are on a journey and you're at a different stage of your journey. It's not that you're different. It's like, if, say, for example, you're a brand new coach and you compare yourself to us, we are just 4 years ahead of you. That's all.
Yeah.
We are not better. We are not more intelligent. We are just 4 years ahead because we've taken incremental actionable steps day in and day out for the last 4 years.
Exactly.
And you can do exactly the same. But if you look at us and go, I would never be able to be like that. I'd never be able to be as confident as that. I'd never be able to be on camera like that. I'd never be able to. And that's what people say to themselves. If you was to look back at a video of me and Liam when we first got started, it's awful. It's embarrassing. But no one looks at that stuff anymore. We was on a course recently and I said, hands up if you've ever seen the video of me when I first got started. And none of them did. So hands up if you ever saw my first logo. None of them did. Hands up if you ever saw my shoddy suit and my awful haircut in the front of the Portsmouth News newspaper. Nobody did, because that stuff is yesterday's news. It's old. Social media is replenishable day in and day out. And what people scroll past today, they forget tomorrow. So just keep on going and you'll learn, develop and grow. And what you do now will be insignificant in comparison to what you do in the future. But you have to get started and focus on you and taking one step in front of the next, and don't worry about anybody else. And you'll soon realize that by focusing on yourself, you'll even start to catch up, if not overtake some of these other people, because who knows, maybe they're comparing themselves to somebody else.
And I don't doubt that they are in some way, but the successful people and the successful coaches are not letting that hinder them. You know, that's not where their focus lies. They're not letting themselves be, like you said, distracted by that. They're not letting themselves hit that speed bump. You know, do you think me and Lewis look at the people in our industry that are further along than us and we sit there and think, oh, why are we not at that stage yet?
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that? It's like, that's not where our focus is at. Our focus is at the fact that we are at the stage we're currently at, and we will do everything we can to progress and move forward and advance the stage that we're at without comparing ourselves to anyone else.
Do you know what's really interesting? Because obviously there's a lot of things that, and I don't mind calling us successful, and there's a lot of things that successful people like ourselves do that we're not necessarily aware of. And there's something that I was just thinking about there that I know that we do and that you do, but until I mention it, you might not have realized. And this is going to be a little bit of a controversial one because you could flip this on its head and people might think it's a little bit arrogant in some way, but we'll just say it how it is because it's a truth and it works. There's a bit of ambiguity around this title, and it's dangerous to not be specific with the language you're using and what the intention of what you're trying to say is. Stop comparing yourself to others, right? Now, that's not actually the full picture, because what we're really trying to say is stop comparing yourself with everything you haven't got with others, right? Because I tell you what me and Liam do, and we don't badmouth the competition, but we look at the competition and we call out everything that we have that they don't. And was you aware of that was something you was consciously doing? But we do that a lot, don't we? We go, well, they haven't got this, and we know how to do this. And, that's how we compare ourselves.
And you know what? And again, like you said, it might be controversial. I think that is key to success and happiness. I really do. Because comparison is a really interesting thing, isn't it? If you're constantly comparing yourself to people that have more than you, what's that going to do? It's going to put you in a negative state of mind, and it's going to put you in a state of lack. However, comparison isn't the problem. It's that you're comparing yourself to other people in the wrong direction. If you compare yourself to people who have less than you, what does that create? Gratitude, because you're grateful for the things that you do have. And then that brings you a sense of awareness where you think, oh God, I'm glad I've got this, because there's this other existence. There's this other type of person that doesn't have what I have. I'm utterly grateful for what I've got. And that's what we do with the competition. You know, when we actively think about and talk about, okay, they don't have this, they don't have this, they don't have this, but we do. It puts us in that state of abundance and that state of forward thinking and gratefulness as well for what we've got. So we're still making it, we're still comparing ourselves to other people, but we're doing it in the right direction where we realize what we have opposed to what we don't have.
Exactly. Comparing things we have, it fills you with motivation and gratitude and confidence. And it's literally a shift of perspective, and anybody can choose at any moment to just literally flip their focus, not on what they don't have, but what they do have. Say, for example, you're standing outside a room, and inside that room, there's a load of very successful business people. They've been in the industry for 30 years. They are some of the greats. And you could stand behind that door with that door about to open, and you could go, don't fuck it up. You're an idiot. You're inexperienced. You're nothing compared to these people. Don't make any mistakes. Don't let them know how inexperienced you are. Or you could go, I'm younger, sharper, more powerful, more impactful. I'm doing things different. I'm in a new industry, in a new age. These people don't know the types of things I know. They were born in a different era, and I'm about to teach them a thing or two. Open the doors. Now, can you imagine how different you're going to feel from person A to person B? And it's the same person in the same environment with the same situation, but one person had a different perspective to focus on what they did have rather than what they didn't.
I tell you what, as well, that is so powerful for a few different reasons. On one of the trainings recently that we did in the community, I was talking about the reticular activating system, and we talk about this, every so often. But due to the reticular activating system, which for people that don't know is essentially a collection of cells at the bottom of your brain stem or something like that. But it's a filter system, really. So it filters out all of the things that you're not paying attention to, that you're not focused on, and that you don't believe. The two people that you've just described, person A, who's saying to themselves, oh, you know what, I'm not as experienced, I'm not as good, I'm not as clever, I'm not as successful. That thought process and that perspective will have an effect on that person in three different ways. It will affect the way they think, affect the way they feel, and affect the way they behave. Now, person B, who's saying, I'm sharper, I'm more impactful, I'm smarter, I'm going to teach them a thing or two, that thought process also has the same effect, how they think, how they feel, and how they behave. Those two people will walk into that room thinking, feeling, and behaving completely differently. And therefore, the reticular activating system will show person B or person A all of the reasons why they're not as good. And the reticular activating system will show person B all of the reasons why they are even better. But the same opportunity lies out there in the future for both of those people in an equal way. But the way that they approach it is totally different because it affects the way they think, feel, and behave. So perspective is everything. If you're going to compare yourself to people that have less than you so that you have a sense of gratitude and motivation and giving. Don't compare yourself to people that have more because it's just going to put you in a state of lack.
And I know this training that you're talking about because it's our NLP practitioner course, and I've obviously gone through it, and it's mind blowing. And there was a quote on there that's one of my favorites as well, and it's from Henry Ford, I believe, and it's whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. Is it Henry Ford?
Henry Ford, yeah.
Yeah. And that's so true. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right, or something along those lines. And it's like, if you go in that room thinking that you're going to blow them away, you're right. If you go in that room thinking you're inexperienced and they're going to laugh at you, you're probably right. Because that's what your reality will start to, create around you based on the actions and the way that you feel and the energy you give off. The opportunities won't be there if you feel insecure and unconfident. But if you're feeling powerful and like you've got something to offer, you're going to give your business cards out. You're going to shake people's hands. And I remember a scenario so like this. There was a scenario where I went to a networking meeting, and I always tell stories based on pretty much myself to a certain extent. I went to a networking meeting, and it's pretty much this scenario. It wasn't a full group of people. It was only a couple of people, but one particular guy, he started to pitch me. He was actually a Royal Marine Commando turned coach, and he'd been coaching for like decades. And he was one of those coaches that would charge a lot of money, like 10, 15, 20 grand. And he would get people, he'd get CEOs flying out of airplanes and shit like that. Like jumping out of airplanes is like a new lease of life, going through their 40-year-old sort of midlife crisis. Life becomes a bit stagnant, and he comes and shows them how to be a commando kind of thing. So like, really cool guy and a really successful coach. And he came up to me, and I was very, very new to coaching, and I did feel a little bit like a young guy and a little bit like looking up to these people. And he came over to me and he started pitching me, basically, not in a bad way, but he was coming over to exert his authority as a coach and to tell me the things that he does to try and get me to think that I want to look up to him and learn from him. And I remember looking at him thinking, I've got a choice right now. Either be sold to or I sell. And I just decided to flip it straight away. And I just changed the conversation to his lack of social media. And I booked a discovery call with him, and I closed a sale. And it was my first ever package that I'd ever sold of social media. This is when I was a mindset coach. But I looked at the opportunity that was presented to me, and I thought, I have something that you don't, and I'm going to sell it to you. And I did. And that was the birth of me getting into business and the business I'm doing now. If I'd have literally just told myself a different story and made a different decision that I couldn't teach him anything because he was old and wise and successful, then that decision wouldn't have led me to where I am today. So we speak from experience with this stuff, don't we, Liam?
Yeah, all the time. Like, that's why we tell our personal stories, because it's all personal experience. And interestingly enough, if you had stuck with the perspective of this guy is senior, he's more experienced, he's better than me, your reticular activating system would not have allowed you to have that thought about social media. That thought wouldn't have entered your head. But because you had that decision, you made that decision, I'm going to flip this. I'm going to find something that I can sell this guy on, that I'm more experienced in. And then your reticular activating system goes, boop, there you go, Lewis. Don't forget about your social media, because you've got fucking loads of that and this guy doesn't have any.
And then after, when I've got the sale for the social media, I'm thinking, fuck me, I could sell another couple of those. Next thing you know, I've got a different business.
Yeah.
So guys, decisions make a big difference. So the next one is beating yourself up. Now, this is a common one, isn't it? People believe that you have to be hard on yourself, to push yourself, to motivate yourself. And if you are disappointed with your results, then it's just going to, motivate you to do more. Now, to a certain extent, there's some element of truth in that. Obviously, you want to push yourself. You want to, strive for the next level of success or results in whatever it is that you're doing. But I think the difference becomes not being grateful and not giving yourself the pat on the back and acknowledging the progress you've made, as opposed to completely devaluing it. Because it's an analogy I always use, and I have to refer to people as dogs in order to be able to do it. And it always gets a bit of a laugh, but it just makes so much sense. When you've got like a dog doing those dog tricks, jumping over the fucking hoops and all that sort of stuff, they've got little biscuits that they give it along the way, don't they?
Yeah.
Little tiny biscuits every couple of meters, because every couple of meters, the dog's going, thanks for that. I appreciate that. I tell you what, I'm going to go jump in that next hoop much better now. Right. But if that dog wasn't given those little biscuits incrementally through that journey, halfway through it, it'd be going, what the fuck am I doing this for? I'd rather go and play with that ball over there, because I'm not getting any biscuits here. Right. So it's the same with humans. If you don't acknowledge and give yourself some sort of appreciation and reward, and that reward doesn't need to be an ice cream or a bloody new iPhone. That reward can be a, well done, mate. I'm quite proud of you. You've grown as a person. And that can be quite difficult for people. And I think that's the key, isn't it? It's acknowledging what you've done and striving for more, not beating yourself up for what you haven't done, because that's just going to deflate you, demotivate you, and want you to stop, because you're thinking, what's the point? I've been working myself to the bone. I feel like a failure. I feel like I keep on telling myself it's not good enough, and I feel worse as a result. So maybe I just stop altogether. Yeah,
it's interesting as well, because there's this thing that obviously me and you talk about all the time, Lewis, in the coaching space, which is that internal dialogue, that voice inside our head, the things that we say to ourselves. And one little quick tip that I love to give people is that if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself, because we beat ourselves up in that way so much. We beat ourselves up with that little voice inside our head constantly saying, oh, that wasn't very good. That was shit. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. I don't think you're going to succeed. I think that idea is crap. Well, you could give it a shot, but it's probably not going to work out. Would you ever say any of that stuff to a friend? If you had a friend that approached you and said, you know what, I've got this really good idea for a business and I'm going to really go for it. If they were your friend, would you go, that's not going to fucking work, mate, because you're not very smart. You're not good enough. I don't.
You ain't got the confidence for that.
You haven't got the confidence for that, mate. I don't think you're smart enough to pull off something like that. Of course you wouldn't, because they're your friend.
And you're pretty ugly as well.
Yeah. And you know what? Fuck me, you're ugly, mate. So I wouldn't even go anywhere near that idea. You wouldn't say stuff like that, right? But we say it to ourselves. Why the fuck do we say it to ourselves? We say it to ourselves all the time. Internal dialogue is one of the most common ways that people beat themselves up. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. Start taking control over the internal dialogue inside your own head, because surprise, surprise, you can control it. You just need to pay a little bit more attention to what you're saying.
Language is something that we speak about day in and day out. And we usually say thoughts create your actions, which create your results, right? That's the basic form. I read something recently and I loved it. And it's like a deeper layers to that. It's like your thoughts lead to your actions, which leads to your results, which leads to your habits, which leads to your character, which leads to your destiny. And I was like, whoa, you just took that a couple of layers deeper. But it's so true. And that is the profound effect of decisions. if you decide to have a different conversation with yourself internally, and you might think, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between me saying, oh, you're not good enough, or me saying, you know, well done, mate, you can do this? That would be the difference between you saying yes or no to an opportunity. And that yes or no to an opportunity might put you in a different environment with different people and allow you to become a different person. And after doing those things with those people for a certain period of time, you'll find that you'll naturally create different habits. And after a while, those habits and that character will create a different destiny. Change your thoughts, change your destiny.
Jesus, that is mega. That is mega. And it's so true as well. You know, everything originates with a thought. And that is what you need to change. When we tell people about that journey, and as you say, normally we take them up to the point of action. But of course, actions becomes habits, habits become character, character becomes destiny. You know, and we're always saying the thing you need to change are your thoughts. Don't worry about any other stage throughout that process. Your thoughts are the things that need to change. And to answer that question, when people are thinking, oh, you know, but what's the point of this? We've got to go back to the thing we said before. It's because it has an effect on how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. How you think, how you feel, and how you behave has a dramatic effect to everything in your life, because it changes how people see you, how they view you, how they think about you, how they talk to you, how they react to you, what level of respect they have for you. You know, it affects everything in the world around us. It will affect where you find yourself, who you find yourself speaking to, the opportunities that present themselves to you. Your whole life is determined by how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And how do you change that stuff? With your thoughts. It has to start with your thoughts. So you're absolutely right. Your thoughts equal your destiny 100% of the time. Now, an interesting thing about thoughts, they're like wild horses, right? They're fucking hard to control, but they can be tamed. They can be controlled. It takes time. It takes repetition. It takes some coaching techniques, which obviously we're all about. But first and foremost, it just takes the level of awareness of thinking about your own thoughts. And you know what they say? That's the one thing that really solely separates us from animals. So animals are purely reactive. You know, you shoot off a gun in the air amongst a herd of cattle or, you know, whatever, or a herd of deer, whatever type of animal, they all react in the exact same way, instinctively. Humans are the only mammals that are able to stop and think, how do I feel about this? Am I scared by that gun going off, or am I intrigued, or am I excited? We can think about our own thoughts. So that's the number one thing I want all of our listeners to take on board with that one. In terms of not beating yourself up, start thinking about the things you're thinking about, because the chances are you're thinking about ways to beat yourself up. Stop that.
And this takes us perfectly to the next topic, and that is the difference between a fixed mindset, well, not to have a fixed mindset and to have a growth mindset. Now, this is quite, again, I sometimes lose the level of perspective around what's basic and what's not. I think this is, but then sometimes you miss some of the fundamental principles, and there's a lot of successful coaches that will be like, oh, what is that? And there's lots of things we don't know as well. So in my mind, this is quite basic, and this is something that if you'd have stepped into mindset, maybe this is something that's taught. I love how all these topics come together. And we said it before, but there's some repetition sometimes. And that's because it's important, because there's overlap. It needs to start to gel together. A little analogy that I like to use a lot of the time is quite a modern day analogy, something that wouldn't be in those old traditional personal development books. But you know, when you get a new iPhone and you have to set it up and you have to put your thumbprint on it, right? Yeah. And you put your thumbprint on it and it goes, and it goes, one more, and you go, and then the pieces start to fill up even more. And then it goes third time lucky, and you go, and the whole thing just fills up, and it goes like you've now secured your iPhone. That's what I feel like personal development is. It's like these different layers of knowledge that must keep on being put on top of each other until they start to come together. And actually, it's not the best analogy, because obviously you want to feel like there's always more fingerprints to be putting down and more to be learning, but there is something to be said about overlap and making sure that all of these personal development, mindset related coaching techniques, tools and frameworks start to make sense together. Because there's a lot of people that will read a personal development book, they might read The Secret and they might think, yeah, that makes a bit of sense, but like, I don't quite get it. And that's because you need to do more learning. So anyway, I ramble, but I love how these come together, because we're talking about not beating yourself up, and we're now talking about the lead on to that, which is not to have a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is essentially believing that you as a person are limited and fixed, and you are what you are, and you believe what you believe, and you think how you think, and there's nothing more to it. And there's so many people that use very definitive language like, I am not smart. There's a time in my life where I could have been, like, on paper categorized as incredibly not smart, because that wasn't what I was gifting myself. That wasn't what I was putting my focus into. That wasn't the belief that I had about myself. And I could have done a test. I could have, looked myself in the mirror and I could have said, I am not smart. But that would have been a fixed mindset, because that would have been me saying, and I can never change this. But a growth mindset, very, very simple, is knowing that we are ever evolving. We have unlimited potential. We can learn, develop, grow, change, adapt, evolve, completely do a 360 at any given moment. If I want to go from a prisoner to a coach, or you want to go from a postman to an international speaker, or I want to start, becoming religious tomorrow, or I want to just sack everything off and get my backpack the next day, and whatever we want to do, we have the ability to do that. If we want to become intelligent, we can learn more, and we can become, the example I always give to this quickly is, I used to believe I had a bad memory because I was drunk all the time. And I genuinely believed that I had a bad memory. And I just realized I was telling myself a story, and it was a fixed mindset. I have a bad memory. Now, a much better one is, I'm going to improve my memory, because I have the ability to evolve and to get better at anything I put my mind to it. And I sat there in my prison cell. And if you haven't heard the fact I've been to prison, that may be a shock for any new listeners, but I've been to prison multiple times. And I sat down there and learnt pi. And I memorized pi to the nearest 500 decimal places. Now, since doing that, I've realized that that's actually an incredibly difficult thing to do. And still to this day, 4 years later, I could reel you off at least 200 off the top of my head now. And I won't do it. I'll do it a little bit just to prove that I can do it. And I'm looking at the camera. 3.141, 592, 653, 589, 79, 323, 8462, 6433, 3279, 5028, 8419, 169, 751. That was about 40, just to prove it's still there. And you could, if you want to, guys, go back, pause it, and then play it, and then Google pi, and I'll prove that I've done it. So this was 4 years ago. Somebody who does have a good memory. And all the difference was, I decided to stop telling myself a story, stop focusing on that fixed mindset that I've got a bad memory, and start focusing on a growth mindset, and realize I have the ability to change parts of myself. Definitely. The person I am, the things I do, the things I'm good at, my skills, qualities, traits, it's all infinite. And that's huge.
That is huge, right? Now, for someone who once thought he had a bad memory, being able to memorize pi up until what you said, like the 500th decimal when you were studying it at the time, and you can still do it probably up to about 200, and everyone just heard about 40 then. And like you said, go back and listen to it. For all of
just by the way, guys, just for anyone listening to the podcast, we also do this live on Facebook inside our Facebook community. Now, if you're not part of our Facebook community, come and join our completely free group called Coaching Mastery for online coaches. You can go to the Facebook search bar and you can type in Coaching Mastery for online coaches. It's a completely free group, and we do tips and tools and trainings from time to time on all things coaches, whether you're new or a seasoned coach. And we're doing this live right now, and we're looking directly at each other on the camera. There's no notes. There's no rehearsal. There's no topics. There is a notes of a list of a few things we're going to discuss today, but it's not like we're going, oh shit, refer back to the, don't compare yourself stuff that we just Googled. This is just on the top of our mind, and so's the memory thing as well.
Always, like, we pick topics, and there's a few different ways that we pick topics. Sometimes it's something that we really, really want to talk about because we're like, yes, let's talk about that topic. Sometimes we'll create a line for a topic, and we know that we'll have valuable content around that topic just because, like we said earlier, we're 4 years into this journey. We're studying our personal development, our self-development, our coaching all the time, and we know that we can create content, including this, right? Now, think about what we just said around that fixed mindset. There is something that I want all of our listeners to Google, right? Google the word neuroplasticity. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Google the word neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity, right? All of you listeners, really tune into this. This is the scientific biological reason as to why, if you think you have a fixed mindset, it is complete and utter bollocks. You have a growth mindset and you can change. Neuroplasticity is when your brain literally changes shape because of learning something over a certain period of time on a daily basis. When Lewis was sitting in his prison cell learning pi, for the duration of time that he was sitting there learning pi, there would be a part of his brain, right? Certain brain waves within his brain and certain structures within his brain, the cells within his brain, that would have literally changed shape in order to accommodate the new lesson. This happens when we learn a new language, when we learn how to drive. It also happens when we learn, and don't forget, when we learn to be kind, or we learn to be patient, or we learn to be successful and see opportunities. Your brain changes shape. We all have the ability to have a fixed mindset. We all have the ability to have a growth mindset.
Well, that's true. That was true what you just said. We all have the ability to have a fixed mindset. Remember Henry Ford, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. The overlap.
Absolutely.
True.
Absolutely, of course. And you know what? The reason that's even more true is because if you firmly believe that you have a fixed mindset and you cannot change, neuroplasticity will change the shape of your brain to fit in with that fucking horrible belief.
I mean, just quickly, just to think about it, if I believe I've got a bad memory and someone says, "Oh, let me give you my number," and I go, "Oh, I've got a bad memory, I'll never remember it, but you can give it a go." They tell me their number. I'm thinking, I'm not even going to bother trying to remember that because I've got a bad memory.
Yep.
Little do I know that I actually do have the ability to learn that, but I've just told myself that story. So, of course, what you don't do is you don't memorize it, and therefore you forget it because you're not consciously holding on to that information because you don't see the point.
Mm-hmm.
And there you get more information that further confirms your belief that you have a fixed mindset and that you have a bad memory, and then into that self-fulfilling prophecy over and over again for the rest of your life.
So it goes down two different directions, right? And that neuroplasticity, the way that your brain structures and changes its shape in its cells, is either going to serve you or it's going to fucking hinder you. So as of today, we want all of our listeners to make the decision that you are capable of anything. And then on a daily basis, via repetition, do things that move you closer towards that success and prove that you can be successful. Because the more you repeat these things, these daily habits, again, what did we say earlier? Your habits build your character create your destiny. And it's because those daily habits literally change the shape of your brain. So they change you as a person, hence why it changes your destiny. So if you want to do something, start doing it. And at first, you might not be very good at it. Continue doing it. Continue practicing, continue the daily repetition until eventually neuroplasticity changes the shape of your brain. And you're like, fucking hell, actually, I find this quite easy now. There would have been a moment, probably in that prison cell, where you thought, fuck, I can remember it. This is it.
Yeah.
I can remember it now. This is the moment I've had that realization.
It got to the point where it's easy. Like the first, just to explain the journey I went on that, the first 10 took me like a couple of hours. The first 100 took me about 5 days. And then I was doing 200 and 300 a day after. So it was like the first 100 took me 5 days. And then I was doing 200 in an extra day, 300 in an extra day. And it's like once you learn the process of how to do something and you start to allow yourself to do it and you start realizing that you can do it, it becomes easier and easier and easier. It's the same with business. When you first get started in business, it's overwhelming. There's so much to do. I've got to write content. I've got to sort out my calendar. I've got to create this like graphic on Canva. After a while, you realize that you're doing like 3 months worth of normal work in a day. And it's just like that because you've just built up this set of habits and you believe that you can get those things done and you just become more efficient as a person. There's a story that I've told before. Well, I haven't told it on this one. When I was traveling in Southeast Asia, in Cambodia, there was a guy called Safwan, and he would drive a tuk-tuk cab taxi, like it's a converted scooter that's got a taxi on the back of it, and he would take people around the tourist destinations. And what he would do is he would work all day delivering the tourists around the destinations, and then in the evening he would go and work the reception job at a hotel. So he worked back to back. He worked 24 hours a day, and I was like, do you sleep? And he said, oh, I just nap in the back of the tuk-tuk when the tourists are visiting the attractions for like 10, 15 minutes at a time. And I said, like, do you not need more sleep than that? And he said, I don't care about sleep. I just want more experience. And that was incredible, but this is not where the value is. What I realized is he found that incredibly easy. Now, to a westernized person, the thought of that would be just ridiculous. Not having a bed, working 24 hours a day, it'd be uncomprehendable. But then I thought, you know what? This is not Safwan that's like that. This is Southeast Asia in general. The workers work 16-hour days. They get up at 5, they're praying in the temple, and then they're working at 5:30, and then they work till 9, 10 at night. And it's because they've conditioned themselves to work hard because they need to in order to survive. Like, it's for them, that is a normal level of output because that's what everyone else does, and that's what they've always done. He's not sitting in there. Not once did he say he was tired. Not once did he drop in energy. That is his normal. And that's because he's conditioned himself to work in that way based on the habits and the actions and the behavior that he gives off. So
exactly,
if he's just got a great example of a growth mindset, but that mindset hasn't just made him think a little bit differently. It's made his actions fall in line with that. If you think that you can work harder, then you will work harder. And if you continue to work harder, it will become normal and it will no longer seem hard.
That was that person's daily experience. You know, that was their daily repetition. And people completely forget how adaptable we are as humans. You know, I think it was Charles Darwin that said it's not the survival of the fittest. It's those who can adapt the most that will survive. And that's absolutely true. But people forget how adaptable we are. You know, it's like what Bruce Lee says when he says, be water, you know, because water can fit in any container. Water can crash or it can flow. It changes shape, you know, and that's why we need to be like that. And we are like that, but we need to believe it. That's the thing. We need to believe that we're adaptable. We need to believe that we can have a growth mindset, and we need to understand the power of repetition. You know, that guy, via repetition, he was doing that on a daily basis again. Then all of a sudden, the shape of his brain changes through neuroplasticity. Then all of a sudden, he finds it easy. And we look at that and think, God, that must be excruciating. That's his normal. You know, it's just like going to a gym. You don't exercise once and then you get in shape. And the flip side of that coin, you don't get fat by eating one McDonald's, right? It takes repetition. So for all of our listeners, what we want you to know and understand is repetition is key when it comes to developing a new skill, developing a thought process, developing your character. Because remember, your character equals your destiny. If there is something that you want to be good at, if there's someone that you admire and you would love to be in their shoes, don't underestimate the amount of repetition that has gone into creating that person's reality. Start to absorb that information and accept the repetition and play with the repetition. Do something enough on a daily basis and it will become easy for you. So have that growth mindset. Don't be fixed. Be like water, as Bruce Lee says.
Be like water. Love that. So yeah, guys, ask yourself the question, like, what do you believe about yourself? Like, what limiting beliefs? I mean, that's another topic, but, you know, hopefully as coaches, you would start to pick up some of that language now. What limiting beliefs do you have about yourself? What stories are you telling yourself about what you can't do or what you're not good at, rather than thinking about how you can improve or evolve or learn more, or get better at those things? I don't know. Sometimes I think it's so basic. But is it basic? I'm not sure. Sometimes we lose our perspective of what that is, but it seems so obvious once you know it. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like doing a crossword or whatever it is, and someone says, and you're like, oh, for God's sake. Of course it is. And personal development's a lot like that, isn't it? It's like, oh, hold on a minute. So I've just got to focus on what I do have rather than what I don't. Right. So I've just got to stop telling myself that I'm not good at things and start thinking about how I can learn and become better. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I've got to stop hanging around with people that sort of drag me down and, you know, are negative to me and toxic and tell me that I'm no good, and start hanging around with people that inspire me and uplift me, right? Makes utter sense. I mean, these things, it's so obvious, and only until you know them, though.
It's so funny, isn't it? Like when I talk to people that are not in the coaching space whatsoever, and then some people are like, what, is that like being positive and stuff? I'm just like, how has your life managed to get to the point in which it's at without realizing the power of that? Like the power of understanding that focusing on things you do have rather than the things you don't, and finding the good in a situation rather than the bad.
I'm not into all that stuff, all that sort of fist bumping in the air and all that positive malarkey. It ain't for me.
It's like, mate, I would hate to partake in whatever's for you in that case.
Yeah.
In our heads, it's like, what, you mean life? The thing that is life is about, that makes life better, focusing on those good things rather than the bad. I mean, I couldn't fucking, you know what? The shape of my brain, doesn't allow me to see or understand that thought process of not wanting to focus on the positive and not wanting to focus on the success and the moving forward and fucking trying to help people and feeling good and positive self-talk. Like the flip side of that coin, I don't get it. I can't understand it.
When Liam thinks of his brain, most people think of like this gooey organism with all these like wires going around it. Liam just thinks of like a glistening diamond. That's what he thinks of his. When I think of my brain, I just see this glistening orb of light. But look, that's good. Have a diamond brain. Have a diamond.
Mate, 100%. What do we teach people in the world of NLP? Those internal representations we have, they mean something. If I'm thinking about my brain as this glistening diamond, that fucking means something, you know, and that has a representation to me on so many different levels.
That's quite interesting, actually, on the NLP front. It feels better just to even think of it as a diamond. If you think about this sluggish organism inside your head, right, that's got all this blood going around, if you change the perspective you have and the representation and look within your mind and see yourself as having a glistening orb of light, the diamonds just, I mean, it feels lighter, it feels more exciting, it feels more powerful. And every time you think of finding a solution or, you know, becoming the best version of yourself, just think to that lovely glistening diamond that's inside your skull.
100%.
And it's better. It's a better way of thinking of it.
Your thoughts then, that thought process, it has now affected the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. So never forget, listeners, that is fucking key, isn't it? You know, if Lewis enters a situation in which he would like more clarity and a lighter thought process, and he stops and thinks, you know what, I'm going to enter this situation thinking about my brain like this glistening diamond that can do anything.
I'm going to use my diamond.
I'm going to use my diamond. You know what? Use your diamond. And even that's a great term, you know, that's a good linguistic pattern. You know, you're going to enter that situation thinking and feeling and behaving much more effectively than if you were thinking about your brain as this sluggish thing that's just like full of blood and it's weighing you down and it's a bit clogged up. Mate, it's like this power
is
of
a bit out there, isn't there? This is a bit out there for a lot of, if there's any new people in the coaching world, they'll be thinking, what the fuck they were on about? It was making a lot of sense. They started talking about that your fucking brain's a diamond thing. But guys, if you are listening to this, take just a little bit of wacky knowledge from us from time to time and just apply it to your life. Because honestly, next time you've got something to solve and you think I'm going to use my diamond, just remember us. In fact, if you're on Instagram, tag us in. I'm at Lewis Raymond Taylor. Liam is at liam.james.collins. And of course, we're at the Coaching Masters. Tag us in and take a screenshot of this and just say, Coaching Masters, I promise from now on, I'm going to use my diamond.
Use your diamond from now on. Use this.
Use your diamond, guys. Right, now the next topic that we've got, again, to me, very obvious, very linked, very on topic, just follows perfectly onto the next one. And that is having a problem-focused mindset.
That this obviously exists in a lot of people's minds, right? Of course it does. I think I've just been a part of this thing now for so long that I fully now cannot relate to a problem-focused mindset.
And it's because you've eliminated fear from your life. And that's a bit of an interesting one because I believe that's where it comes from. So people are scared. They're scared of change. They're scared of success. They're scared of failure. They're scared of confirming other people's opinions of them. There's so much going on for them, all the insecurities and doubts, that it's much, much easier to find a way out. And that's what people do, I believe. They look for problems because it creates an excuse. And excuses lead to inaction. And inaction keeps you within that little comfort zone, doesn't it? The one we spoke about on the second ever episode or whenever it was. You know, how to escape from your comfort zone, which is another podcast we've done, guys. Zoom back and you'll find that one. But yeah, I believe that's exactly what it is. People are presented with an opportunity, something that they could potentially do with their life, but it's incredibly uncomfortable to say, I'm going to try at this. I'm going to put myself at risk. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to expose myself. I'm going to find out whether I can do this or not, whether I'm a failure or a success. And that is like, whoa, 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 whoa. And subconsciously, I think people go, get the fuck out of this situation. But what people don't want to do is they don't want to have to make a very obvious excuse, because that feels really uncomfortable. So rather than make an excuse, they make a subconscious justification. So they justify why that is not a good idea. And the best way to do that, create a problem.
Yeah.
If I create a problem, then I don't have to do fuck all today, because I've got a big problem. And it's so easy to find a problem. Now, I love how this is all related, because whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. If you look, and another one, seek and he shall find. If you look for problems, you will find problems. If you look for, and here's the key, solutions, you will find solutions. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. It's one of those easy, obvious ones. Look for problems, you're going to get problems. Look for solutions, and you will find a solution.
You'll always get those people that are they defend their problem mindset so much, right? I know there are people like that. They will defend their negativity and defend their problem mindset. And those people they always have that misconception of saying, almost feeling like we're in denial that there are problems. We're not in denial that there are problems, but we firmly believe that we are able to find a solution to that problem. That's the difference, right? It's not that we're saying there are no problems. We're saying that those problems that are there and that are occurring, this is the solution that I'm going to find for that. And if I don't know what it is yet, I will look for it and I will find it. And that's having a solution focused mindset, whereas people that have that problem focused mindset, they focused just on the problem and almost they don't attempt to find the solution for the reasons that you've just listed. And it keeps you stuck and it keeps you in that comfort zone. And I fucking hate that place. Yeah. That's a horrible
and do you know what even makes me even more agitated is when people have a problem and then they do take a very courageous leap and they do look for a solution and they find one solution, it doesn't work. And then that's it, they stop. For me, and this isn't just lingo, I genuinely believe that there is a solution to every problem. Like there is. Definitely. In some way or another, whether it's easy or hard to find, it's there. You just got to find it. Again, another example. What was it? Oh my God. Yeah, I remember now. It was a tiny little, those little screwdrivers that you get to undo a pair of glasses. I have no idea what I needed that for, but I needed one of those. And I went into Wilkinson. And if anyone from the UK, you'll know Wilkinson. If you're not, you won't. It's like a Walmart type thing. Yep. And I went up to someone in there and I said, "Excuse me, do you have one of those little screwdrivers that you use to undo a pair of glasses?" And they said, "Oh no, sorry, we don't." 99.9% of the population would have walked out. I ignored her and went around and found it. And from that moment, I realized a few things. One, don't take no for an answer. Two, don't fucking listen to anybody else. And three, just keep going until you get what you want. And it's such a basic example. But if someone told you, that works there, no, we don't have that, you'd turn around. Well, most people, you wouldn't, but most people would turn around and walk out. But actually, I thought this person might not know, and I just don't trust them, and I'm going to find it. It's the sort of thing that they'd have in this shop, and found it. It's just because I believe that there is always what I'm looking for. The answer is always there. The solution is always there. It is there. You've just got to find it. And if you get a no, you go again. If it doesn't work and you get to a dead end, you try something else, and you keep on doing that until eventually you get what you want, and it happens every time, every single time.
Definitely. And if you think how many people would have then used that as a reason as to not do whatever the job you need to do, like, oh, well, I can't find that screwdriver anywhere. I went into one shop and someone said that it wasn't in there. Oh, I can't find it anywhere. I've looked everywhere, and in NLP we'd challenge that and say everywhere. Have you really looked everywhere? And most people would give up at that point, right? But of course, what does that do? By making the decision that you're going to look for it and making the decision and setting the intent that you're going to find it, gives you the energy to go and fucking look around the shop. And you'd have the energy to go and look around another shop and another shop until you achieve the solution that you've been looking for. And that problem-focused mindset really is an excuse-focused mindset, isn't it? If we're going to change the terminology around it, you're looking for an excuse.
And a lot of people laser in on the problem and they're not thinking outside the box, and they're just like, okay, maybe Wilkinson was their only option. Like you said, they've looked everywhere for it, but all you got to do is enlarge the solution and think, what else could I do to get this same result? If you're thinking, I need a little tiny pair of screwdrivers, and you're thinking, and the solution to that is getting them from the shop. If you deplete and exhaust that one particular avenue that you've tried, then in your mind, you have now sort of failed, you still got the problem, you haven't found your solution. But rather than thinking about the specific vehicle and route that you decided upon in the first place, think about how else could I get the outcome that I'm looking for. For example, I could get a different pair of glasses, right? And still get the outcome I was looking for. Maybe I could actually get someone to do it for me. Maybe I could walk into like a watch shop or a key cutting shop and say, do you have one of these? Maybe I could walk into one of the mobile phone shops on the side of the street that are like selling phone cases and say, hey mate, do you have, and I can guarantee the solution is minutes away if you decide to find the solution.
An analogy that I love for this is like a sat nav, right? Satellite navigation in your car. When you set your destination and you are intent on reaching that destination, if you take a wrong turn, your sat nav doesn't go, oh, well, that's it. You might as well go home now. It reroutes you, doesn't it? It allows you to find another way to your destination. You could take 100 wrong turns, 1,000 wrong turns. And every single time you take a wrong turn, that sat nav is going to reroute you to help you get to your destination. It's not going to tell you to give up. It's not going to tell you to turn around and go home. It will simply find another way. And that is the key to having that solution focused mindset. It's like a sat nav focused mindset.
Wish I had that. It's one of my, I was about to say one of my weak spots, but that'd be a limiting belief. But Liam, you'll know my challenge. I've got to be careful what I say now. My challenge with coordination. But what I do is I just walk in circles for hours on end until I eventually recognize something. A 10-minute journey will take me an hour and 20 minutes, but I'll get there. I'll fucking get there, Liam.
Oh, no, and you know what? It's the same way of learning pi. If you made the decision that you wanted through neuroplasticity to change the shape of your brain and get very good at rerouting yourself and finding where you are in a place, and you did it again and again and again, you'd fucking do it 100%.
I'll have done my London Black Cab knowledge license in the next couple of weeks.
Mate, if you wanted to do it, you could do it 100%, and your brain will change shape and you'll do it. But yeah, mate, that's a challenge, isn't it? There was a guy called Chris who I was a postman with, and he was learning it at the time, and he was showing me some of the stuff that he needed to learn in order to try to pass this test. You have to learn every road in London. Can you imagine what the shape of their brain's like? There's a part of their brain that is like a muscle. It's like just training your bicep on one arm for your whole life, and you've just got this one massive bicep. That's like, there's a part of their brain that looks like that.
It is impressive. I mean, if you think if you can learn every road in London, then you can learn anything. So, right, what we got? So I think we've got time for one more. The next one on our list was saving rather than investing. And this is not something we speak about often because we don't really step into the world of money and finances, and we're not investors. We don't have like a big property portfolio or a lot of Bitcoin. We're just talking about, primarily investing in yourself. Let's start there, right? Sure, but saving rather than investing is a bad move because your money, when it's in the bank, is worthless because it's just sat there. And it's actually, due to depreciation and all sorts of other financial leverage that we're not massively skilled on, it's probably it is worth less and less each day. So you actually got a depreciating asset within your bank. And I'm sure I'm using the wrong terminology here, but I just want to give you a brief overview. So many people focus on saving as being their only way of getting money, don't they? It's like, oh, I want to go on holiday. Oh, I want to buy this. What are you going to do? Just going to save some money each month. But all you're doing is just putting a small amount of money into a place that becomes smaller. Yeah. But of course, rather than saving, you can invest that money into something that's going to return you an investment that's going to 5 times, 10x your investment, whether that is on something that might actually be more profitable, so like, some sort of asset or commodity that you can invest in. We're not going to talk about trading and all that sort of stuff, but that is an option. You could invest in gold, for example, okay, but let's not go down that path. But investing in yourself, learning a new skill set, learning a way to make more money. And that's the key. Rather than save, invest, or forget the investing, rather than working out how can I save money, ask yourself the question instead, what can I do to make more money? Because then you don't even need to save it. And if you do save it, you're going to be saving a hell of a lot more.
Much like the other things we've spoken about, it's a mindset, isn't it? And that's why this is one of the most important topics to talk about, the difference between the saving mindset and the investing mindset. do these things and you'll never be successful. This one really deserves that space on the list because it's all about the mindset. It's all about the perspective. It's about that growth mindset as well. Understanding that from the start of your life, from the moment you're born to the moment you die, and possibly beyond, we don't know yet, but it's a journey, right? It's a journey. And what do you want to do throughout that journey? You want to grow, you want to learn, you want experiences. You don't want to just keep yourself stuck and fixed in one place, because of course we know that that one place is probably your comfort zone, and that's where dreams go to die. So the idea of investing your money rather than saving it, what you're doing there is you're investing in things that are going to bring you levels of growth, bring you more knowledge, allow you to become a better, more well-rounded, more experienced person. Same with investing in yourself, making the decision to invest your time wisely, to invest your thoughts wisely, to invest your attention very, very wisely. Imagine if you tried saving your thoughts and saving your passion and saving your time in the same way that people save money. People would say, well, that's a really bad idea. You don't want to save your time. You want to maximize on your time. You've only got one life. You want as many experiences as you can. But we fall into that trap with money, don't we? We just save, but we spend the time. We want to be investing all of these different elements of us, who we are, our thoughts, our time, our perspective, our money, to grow. That's the key. We need to grow to be successful.
The time one is so true. I actually didn't even think about that when I thought of investing. I think in most people's mind would have jumped straight to money because that's what we think about when we talk about investment. But absolutely, investing your time into people and businesses and skills. Like you don't necessarily have to spend money on it. If you invest an hour a day to adopt a perfect morning routine, if you invest an hour a day to listen to a podcast, to read a book, to watch YouTube videos and absorb information that's going to serve you, if you invest that into a relationship, into a business, in things that are going to move you closer towards the things you want from life, whether that's success or happiness or wealth, just invest your time in the right areas. So time is such a key point there. But yeah, money as well. I mean, this is going to look like a blatant sort of plug, but we'll say how it is. We have coaching qualifications, and those qualifications in terms of the investment are insignificant in terms of what they bring. And I'm not even just talking about obviously the fulfillment and the freedom and being able to have your own business. I'm talking financially, because say, for example, you spend X amount of money on learning a skill set to be able to offer very powerful, life-changing service to others. You only need a handful of clients, if that, even less than that, before you've recouped your investment of that qualification. And then you can then continue to return on that investment of that qualification for as long as you need. So say, for example, you invest X amount of money and it takes three months of coaching clients to be able to get that money back. Then for the rest of your life, you are not just a more well-rounded individual. You not only have fulfillment for helping others, you not only have freedom for having your own online business, but you've got a vehicle of making money that doesn't define you to your desk job earning a specific salary for the rest of your life. Okay. And that is returned within a very short period of time. Same with the other courses. Now, I don't want this to be a sales pitch, but it is true. So I want to share it. We've got another course that helps coaches launch their business and gives them all the strategies and all the technology to be able to acquire clients. Now that, as an investment, is very obvious, very quick, because if you just go and, try everything and, try and get clients, but you don't really know what you're doing and you've got to just figure out what works, then it's going to take you ages. And that time is going to cost money. However, if you just learn from somebody who has the results that you desire and can tell you step by step what you need to do, then you're going to have that framework in order to be able to get clients. And obviously clients equals money. So say, for example, you invest in a course that teaches you how to get clients. You're basically paying for a way to make more money. And that is going to save you a hell of a lot more money over the period of 3 to 6 months than putting 150 quid in a bank account once a month.
People that are successful, they tend to understand that balance between time and money, don't they? They tend to really understand it. Like, I am so aware, and I know Lewis is aware of this as well. We are so aware that time is the most valuable commodity that we've got. We are fully aware of that. It's the one commodity which we cannot get any more of, no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try. Now imagine that in the form of money. Let's imagine for a moment someone gave you, I don't know, £1,000 and said, this is the only money you will ever have. You will not and cannot get any more than this. You would be very selective over what you would spend that money on. You would give it a lot of thought. You would make sure that you only spend it on something that is deeply meaningful to you. That is the equivalent of what we've got with time, and people fucking waste it. They flitter it away. Now, we have got a certain amount, and that is it. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. You will never have any more. So be very selective over how you spend your time, because make no mistake about it. You're spending it. You're spending time in the same way that you spend money. When you sit there and you watch Netflix for 2 hours or 4 hours a night, you're spending time in the same way that you spend money. And that spent time, you're never getting that back. So people that have that successful mindset, that growth mindset, you know, we're very aware of how we spend time, and we only want to be spending that very valuable time on something that is an investment that will give us something back. If it's an investment in knowledge, an investment in loved ones, an investment in growing a business, or an investment in contributing to others so we can get that strong sense of fulfillment. Spend your time very, very, very wisely. Invest your time very wisely. And don't try to flitter it away or save it or keep it stashed. And that is one of the things, or one of the types of mindset that a lot of successful people have.
Because I tell you what, a lot of people are focusing on doing the things that they need to do to be successful, but they're not thinking about the things that they're currently doing that are stopping them from being successful, right? It's another reframe, another flip, another perspective, right? Maybe you are destined for success. Maybe you are a successful person, but you're just doing so many things that are sabotaging your results. Remove them all one by one, and you'll be in a very different space.
Well, you know, we like an analogy, don't we? Right? If you only ever focus on the things that you need to do to be successful, and you never focus on the things that you should not do, that's like a 100-meter sprinter saying to himself or herself, all right, what I need to do is I need to just sprint the 100 meters day after day after day after day. And if I do that again and again and again, I'm going to get faster, and have completely neglected the fact that their shoes are both tied together. Right? They have not looked down and thought, right, what do I not need to do? Okay, well, first and foremost, I need to not tie my fucking running spikes together, because no matter how much they then try to practice, they're always going to be tripping themselves up. So we need to focus on those things that we should not be doing.
This is such a perfect analogy to use, because I don't know if you've ever seen the famous meme, but it might not be famous outside of our space, but the famous meme of Usain Bolt winning some sort of like, oh my God, I'm really not in. Yeah, race, that would do. And you've got him like leant forward with his like head like extended over the finish line, and you've got the competitor on position number 2 looking to the right at him. Because that person was comparing himself to others. He was looking at somebody else's results rather than focusing on the winning line. So just to wrap it all up and gel it all together. Well, there's a lot to gel up there, but yeah, what Liam said, you know, rather than focusing on winning the race, untie your shoes, take off that heavy burden of a backpack that you've been carrying your whole life, and then make sure you don't look at the person next to you, look at the finish line, and just fucking run, baby, run.